Good morning. Welcome to the 2015 State Community Landcare Conference, Landcare, Connecting People and Healthy Landscapes. The Landcare Association, in its process of reinvigorating landcare in South Australia, has facilitated this conference as part of the delivery of the State Community Landcare Plan published in 2014. We've continued to focus on the four themes. Thank you, Lance. The four themes of our plan: biodiversity management and conservation, Indigenous land management, people and volunteers, and sustainable farming. In welcoming you to this sellout event, we would like to thank the people and organisations that got us to this point, celebrating landcare in the wonderful town of Waikerie. The Steering Committee, a gathering of great people from many organisations who you will see in red t-shirts. You, the registrants and speakers who have taken the time to network with your peers, and the sponsors. Our foundation sponsor, the Australian Government National Landcare Program, our theme sponsors, the Native Vegetation Council, Aboriginal Lands Trust, Natural Resources Adelaide and Mount Lofty Ranges, and Primary Industries and Regions SA. Our registrant support sponsors, the Goulburn to Wellington LAP, Natural Resources South East, and Natural Resources SAMDB. Our other sponsors have been most helpful: Taylor's Wines, Doona, Arbor Green, the Green Army, Banrock Station, Paul White Photos, who will be taking photos during the conference awards tonight, and I'll make a mention that he's giving a special offer to anyone who would like reproductions of his photos. And last but not least, Conacher Minolta. Our media partners: ABC Rural, Narelle Graham will be here at the conference recording stories for radio and will be our MC at the awards tonight. Stock Journal and Smart Farmer, Carla Wee-Smith will be writing stories for her papers. And Environmental Science and Media, Miriam is recording video for our records and the website. The program is diverse, stimulating and enlightening, and I hope that, like me, you are looking forward to an enjoyable conference. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Uncle Barney, who'll welcome you to country. Uncle Barney is a soft-spoken, humble and content man with a deep connection to and respect for his culture, country and community of Gerard. Uncle Barney is a proud Ngarrindjeri Marara elder, representative of the First Peoples of the River Murray and Mallee, and lifetime resident of his beloved Gerard community, which is situated on the banks of the Murray River, 22 kilometres from Berry in the Riverland. Uncle Barney is one of the longest surviving residents of Gerard community and has spent the past 40 years to date working as an Aboriginal support worker and undertaking the local schools bus runs morning and afternoon for a number of primary and secondary schools, including Winkie, Berry, Riverland Special and Glossop High. Uncle Barney's significant contribution and service to the Aboriginal community in the Riverland was recognised this year as he was nominated and was one of 5 to be shortlisted for the 2015 Premier's NAIDOC Award. Uncle Barney attended the awards and was duly recognised. Thank you, Uncle Barney.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Gerry, for that introduction. I'd like to, in this point in time, thank the most important person that I believe in. I know the person is God, and thank Him for my life, my family, this land, and people in general, for the Lord Jesus Christ, His Son that I believe He gave His life for my sins and everything, and for my people that roam this great country of ours, throughout the Riverland, and throughout Australia. Our ancestors cared and shared knowledge, wisdom, shared about animals, plants, and the water life, where to find water, and where there's no river, there's water on the ground. So our people knew that, and I just like to honour and thank God for their lifetime on earth, and for the people that our people in different areas now that are still living, and for everybody. I say bless you, and may Lord keep you safe and your families. So thank you. All right, thanks. I'm going to talk a little bit about my lifestyle. I was growing up on the river. When I was a child, I remember my mum and dad. They was beautiful people, and I had respect for them. My dad especially, and my mum, she was a beautiful cook, and she made meals out of sometimes out of nothing, just a packet of flour what received, and she turned it into a meal that sometimes when Dad wasn't successful in hunting, and she made a beautiful meal. My dad was a hunter and a gatherer, and he used to go out hunting, but sometimes, well, most of the times when he went out hunting, he used to smoke himself as a sort of a ritual that sort of pleased the spirit of God, and to be successful in his hunt. And he used to come home with fish and ducks and swans and things like that, kangaroos. And fishing was a part of my life on the river. I remember my dad, he made, he used to make boats, and he couldn't read or write or didn't know, but he made boats, and they was amazing, 12-foot boats or 13-foot, and he used to get all these equipment what he needed. And I remember when I used to go to school, and every after school I used to go down to the river where he was making these boats, and you have the fire and all the equipment waiting, to build this boat. And it took him probably sometime about 3 or 4 months. All depends on how much long he made to build the boat. And when it was finished, it glided along the water, and it was good because I rowed it once upriver. Me and my cousin, we used to go fishing after school, and I remember we used to go after school, go down to the river and into a creek and get our bait like shrimps and yabbies, and then jump in our boats and row up the river for about 4 miles and then drift all the way back. We'd have dinner. We'd catch a fish and then we'd have dinner. We'd cook it on the coals and have some flour and then make it what you call turnover, like a bed on the coals, and then and have dinner. That was growing up in the river doing fishing. When I was old enough, I left school because I didn't do much good at school because of my travelling around with my mum and dad, and they used to go for work on blocks in the Riverland, seasonal work. And then I went to school for a while, but I didn't do as well. And then I left early because I wanted to help my dad work. And then started at 15, and then I spent 7 years with the government when they had the government at Gerard. And then I worked there for a while, and then the education came and asked me if I wanted to working in schools, and I taught for a while. I said, because I was thinking I couldn't read or write, and yet they wanted me to work at a school, which was, I think, no, I don't think I'd be able to, last that long. Because when I went there, they said, oh, you'll be doing, like listen to children read, help them with their work. And I was thinking, I can't, But I don't know how I did it, but I did for a while. Instead of learning them, they was learning me to read and write and spell. And, over the years, 34 years, I worked at the school. And during the time, I met a lot of children, parents, and I built up a respect for them, and then they, in turn, respected me. And wherever I go now, sort of meet children that I sort of help, in their lifetime at school, and they still call me Uncle Barney, and it's an honour to be, I recognise that as someone that, if you share respect to people, and that's why I learned respect from my dad, and I honoured him, and looked up to him, and he learned me respect, and I gave respect, and I received respect. So and then I sort of got married, had children, and 3 children. 2 girls and a boy, and now I got I think 8 or 9 grandchildren, and a few great grandchildren. In my lifetime I played footy, sport, cricket, a bit of cricket. I was lucky enough to play on Subiaco, which was good. When I was Perth, I got picked for an Aboriginal team in the Riverland when I used to play, and I was a rockman. If you don't believe me, I used to fly like a kangaroo. I mean, like jump, but it was good. Life's been good, I've had a great, lifetime in my life. And if I, wanted to do it again, I'd say most of my enjoyment was living on the river with my mum and dad and my brothers and sisters, and sharing, the bush life, with them, and the experience of everything that God gave me, to experience. So bless you all, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Uncle Barney. I'll just hand over to Leanne Muffet, our facilitator and MC, and she'll lead us through the rest of the presentations this morning. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Uncle Barney. That was just marvellous, and I feel like I need to come and have an evening meal with you. Sounds like it's lots of fun in your household. As Gerry's mentioned, my name is Leanne Muffet. I'm the Master of Ceremonies, so I'll be seeing a lot of you over the next 2 days, and I'm really looking forward to the program that we've got. We've got a number of welcomes for you this morning, so before I come and speak to you too much about the housekeeping, we're going to move straight into our 3 remaining welcomes for this morning. So I'm going to hand to Lance, who's going to upload for us a video recording that the Federal Minister for the Environment, Greg Hunt, has done for us. Thanks, Lance.
Look, I'm delighted to be able to talk with all of you here today at the South Australian Landcare Conference. Landcare is one of the great icons of Australian community and environmental life. You bring together those 2 things, community and environmental care and management. And so I want to thank you for that. The movement has lost 2 of its progenitors in recent times, with Joan Kerner, and I pay respects to her work, and Philip Toyne, but their legacy has continued on in what is a wonderful, wonderful Australian program. In practical terms, you're part of a broad $2 billion Australian government natural resource management commitment, of which $1 billion is expressly and exclusively allocated under the National Landcare Program. The small groups grants under that have been increased from $90 to $120 million, and hopefully those of you who are here today are able to participate in that, in particular working through the Catchment Management Councils or NRMs. The second thing is we have the Green Army program. I know that, for example, the Landcare network has been working with the Mount Lofty Green Army teams, and that's a really important program. I think that the $700 million and the 700 projects already announced, which will grow to 1,500 a year, provide a fantastic opportunity for the network to supplement the work of their volunteers and to create a pipeline of future volunteers and professionals. Focusing on your projects, what we're finding around the country is that where there is a Landcare group or a Landcare network in conjunction with Conservation Volunteers Australia, Landcare Australia, Greening Australia, or other service providers, we're getting really good outcomes in terms of boardwalks, riparian recovery, removal of invasive species, habitat recovery for threatened species, mangrove rehabilitation in appropriate places. Really good outcomes. So that opportunity is growing. Thirdly, there's the support for the Landcare network itself. We've put $1 million into supporting the state and federal based Landcare network at appropriate levels. That's a big change. But all up, you're volunteers, you do the work, you make a huge difference. Yes, there's federal government support. I'd encourage you to apply through the current 20 Million Trees and Green Army program, which is open until the 16th of September. I'd encourage you to work on the small grants programs for Landcare through the individual NRMs. And above all else, I say thank you. You make a profound difference on the ground. Good luck.
Yes, you may clap. Can I invite our two next guests up onto the stage who are going to also welcome us to the session. And whilst that's going on, just a little bit of housekeeping. Lance, we're also expecting a laptop up here for the presentation shortly. Okay, so we've got both the Mayor of the District Council, Loxton, Waikerie, so Mayor Leanne Stasinowsky, and he's going to welcome us. And shortly after him, we've also got the very radiant and beautifully pregnant Honourable Michelle Lensink, the Shadow Minister for Sustainability and the Environment, and the Shadow Minister for the Water and River Murray. They're both going to welcome us today. So I'll just hand to the Mayor first. Thank you. Do you want to take a seat?
Good morning, everyone. It certainly gives me great pleasure on behalf of the District Council of Loxton Waikerie to welcome you all here to this great event. It's certainly, I think, quite fitting that you're able to pick Waikerie here in the Riverland to come out and have these awards. Landcare is certainly or caring for the land is certainly something that's very dear to our hearts in this region. We've got the river that runs through here, which is the lifeline of not just this region, but our whole state. And you only have to see what happened when the drought was on, when water became very precious, that how much we needed it. And I get held down sometimes by saying that it's probably the drought that we needed to have to really make people sit up and take notice of how precious the water is to us. Unfortunately, we took it for granted that that lovely river through there with the locks and everything was there, always been there, and maybe always will be. But unfortunately, we started taking more out than what was really coming down. And then when it hit us, we didn't know what to do. The irrigators never had that before, so it hit very hard. And it made us stop and think. And that's no different out in the dryland as well. You know, we've had to change our practices. I'm a dryland farmer, even though I have 7 k's of river frontage at Marook. and river flats and that. And it's how you manage things that makes it more sustainable. And I'm glad to see what your 4 themes are up there. And one of the most important ones is people and volunteers. And you know, that's no different with us in council, because without the people and volunteers out there, we would not be able to do nowhere near the amount of stuff to make our towns as attractive and what for people to come and to live here and whatever without all that volunteer effort. Because no difference with Landcare. We've got great Landcare groups within our region who work with us in council, come to us for support or get ticks on the boxes to be able to go and do things. And it's you out there that you then own that, because you can have governments, local governments or whatever, throw money at stuff. And you only have to see some of those big projects. I know the Angry Anderson one that went on, you know, it got huge, you know, big accolades through the press and everywhere. But how many of those trees survived? Unless there was a dedicated group within that area where they were planted and they got the school kids involved, whatever, but I think a lot of them were too young or whatever and moved on. But I know places that none survived at all because nobody ever went back there again. They had the cameras and all the press out there and all looked good at the time. But today, things are tighter, a bit harder, and we're respecting it more. So what's happening is that people like you out there are the ones to take credit for what's really happening. And it's certainly a lot more is being done with less because things are tighter and tougher. And that's brought about by working together with all forms of government and with communities. There's a lot of community support gets put into this as well. But that money's hard earned, so at least to get out there to do the best you can with it. We've got a Landcare group down where I am, and even though I don't get involved, my brother gets that because I'm too busy with other stuff, what I'm doing here now, and so I'm never home to do work on the farm anyhow. But the thing is, that's been going for a long time. You know, getting rid of rabbits, getting rid of foxes, and looking after the malleefowl and other things out there. There's a fair bit of native veg scrub through there, and it's certainly, I think some of you probably have done a tour out there. I know Warren's here because I passed him coming up and he'll tell me I'm speeding. Nearly hit about a 7-foot rule, looked about 10 foot in the middle of the road just after I passed him. So, but the thing is, by working together and working with people on the land, we just can't go and say, look, you can't do this or whatever because they have to make a living as well. But what we've done with that group down there, we started off and there was a lot of angst with certain farmers. No, don't want to have to do with that, just getting to my livelihood, etc., etc. You know, it's done a complete turnaround, and that small group has turned to about 3 times bigger than it was in the first place, and those farmers that were against it are now some of the biggest advocates for it because they could see what we were doing is actually we've all benefited by it. So that's what it's all about, working together and getting the best outcome for what we're doing. So first I congratulate you all for what you're doing. I welcome you here and I hope you have a great 3 days. I think it's 3 days you're here for, yesterday and the day and tomorrow. So, and I look forward to seeing you at the awards tonight. So thank you very much and welcome.
To move these down a little bit. Can I acknowledge Your Worship the Mayor, my former colleague from the Federal Parliament, the Honourable Neil Andrew, who is Chair of the Murray-Darling Basin Association, and Uncle Barney. It's a great pleasure to be here as a member of Her Loyal Majesty Opposition in the State Parliament. We don't often get asked to speak at events, but Landcare is really, really important. Can I start by congratulating the organisers on what's a really comprehensive and interesting program. I went on one of the field trips yesterday. I think there's about 4 of them that I wanted to sign up for, and I was disappointed I couldn't be in 4 places at once. And the feedback that I've heard so far has been really fantastic, and the program over the next 2 days is wonderful. So I think this organisation is really going from strength to strength. Landcare, I think, is more important than ever in Australia and in South Australia. as we see fewer people working on the land for a living, a lot of people in cities, and there can be that divide in understanding of what's really happening in our environment. The Mayor mentioned the drought and the drought we had to have. I think in many ways the silver lining of the drought was that it taught people to be more water wise in Adelaide and to look at their consumption of water. Did they really need to do that? Could they plant more water-wise plants, more indigenous species and so forth? Unfortunately, a lot of people think the drought's been fixed now that it's broken, and I think Landcare provides an important link to really bridge that divide in understanding between what's really taking place on our landscapes and what people's perceptions are, because I think the environment in 2015 doesn't have the same prominence now that it's not being seen in crisis. So the work that's being done through Landcare across South Australia and the deliberations that will happen as a result of this conference are incredibly important to bring to the attention of various levels of government what the needs really are. And I think it's Landcare's got a very proud history, I think, of bringing people together, bringing volunteers, bringing government together, has had some fantastic achievements. I should be very proud of what it represents, and I think is obviously a very viable, sustainable organisation, and we need you. So thank you for your invitation and keep up the good work.
Thank you to you both. We've got a small gift in appreciation. So once again, can we show our appreciation both to the Mayor of Loxton, Waikerie and the Shadow